Yeah. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Duval, would you lead us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join? All right, let's try this. First item is the approval of the minutes from the August 17th meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes, minutes have been approved. Next, we'll open the meeting to public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to address any active application that's currently in front of the planning board, you're welcome to come up now. Given nobody's coming up, we'll close the public input. And move on to the first agenda item. This is a site plan for the property at 7940 Brewerton Road. This is the proposed car wash that's coming back. Gentlemen? Good evening, welcome back.
Good evening, Garrett Steiner, project engineer with DDS Companies, here tonight with Dave Clements, representing Clash Jesse Car Wash. Since we've been in front of the board, we've taken your comments into consideration. We have submitted details and spec sheets for the multiple features throughout the site. We've submitted a revised lighting plan that now complies with town code. They're no longer proposing concrete pavement on the adjacent properties. And we have been in correspondence with the New York State DOT and have resolved the issue with changing the existing entrance on US Route 11. The DOT has agreed that there will be no required change to that entrance.
All set? Yep. We'll open up the questions. Mr. Duval,
I'm good.
Mr. Abbey,
Also, I'm good.
Mr. Snyder,
I love it. No questions.
Mr. Bloss,
I'm all set.
Mrs. Hogan.
All set, thank you.
I'm all set as well. Mr. Procopio,
I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Jermaine, Mr. Parrish.
The only thing I know is that they do have an existing meter board sign that they're going to have to be in place. So they want to reiterate conditions of approval for that sign as part of
Agreed. With that, I'll make a motion for a standard seeker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey. Yes. Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Seeker passes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, we move the adoption of resolution approving the application of Crystal Land Company LLC, 7940 Brewerton Road, proposed car wash renovations. This approval is typically on the following one. The color schemes rendered that of elevations is presented by the applicant to the planning board and the architect schemes to be incorporated by the into the site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the applicant project must substantially conform to the items that are presented herein. In regards to the electronic reader board, the applicant has agreed to display amber alerts when requested to do so by town officials. Accordingly, the applicant shall do so upon any such request. Reader board signage will not display any neon or loud or overly bright colors, and no messages will scroll in an interval of less than 15 seconds. There will be no flashing, oscillating, or scrolling messages. The sign may be internally but not externally lit.
Thank you. Somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes, you're all set. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Next item is sketch plan review. This is for the property at 5917 Route 31. This is a proposed convenience shop. Good evening.
Hello, this is, I'm Christian Freeman, representing a client group for a convenience shop at the corner of Lakeshore Road Spur and Route 31. If you recall, we've been before you, and basically where we ended up was the circulation of the site was deemed important. And so we went back and had several private meetings with the county and state DOT, Jeff Deep and James Fenskin, and sort of sketched around with them in several iterations until we landed on what you see before you. This has a conceptual approval from Jeff Deep of the state. James Fenskin approves because there's no impact to his road, Lakeshore Road, which is the county road. What we have here is the existing building is to remain, which was our plan before as well. There will be a drive-through window that will remain. And we have obviously a two-way entrance off Lakeshore Road Spur, a right-in entrance off 31, and then an in-out from the multi-turning lanes off 31, which is opposite of the auction shop to the south. We've screened, we began screening with plantings and tried to reduce the amount of pavement in order to make it a safer and more sensible layout. If you're familiar with the site, it is currently an open curb cut with parking stall, concrete blocks as the curb. It's drastically in need of improvement. So we would be replacing the curb, adding lawn in, and obviously there'd be some maintenance as well there. In terms of specific features of the site, we have an existing dumpster. We're going to replace it in kind, screen it, do that all according to your code. And then we have an existing sign at the corner of 31 and Lakeshore, the bottom left of the triangle. That's currently an empty, rusty, nasty signpost. That would be updated and replaced, but stay in the same structure and size. And then we're also proposing a small sign at the upper right corner, Lakeshore Spur and Lakeshore Road, and that would be just like a little monument sign to be designed in accordance with your standards.
All set? All I got. We'll open for questions, Mr. Duval.
Yes, so clarify for me what you're doing as far as addressing the traffic concerns.
Sure. So James, I might add that we hired a private traffic consultant, GTS, Gordon Stansbury is his name, and he regularly works with the DOT in projects to both decide how bad traffic flows are and determine what a right turn in or a two-way out, what those things will do to impact the surrounding roads. And James Fenskin iterated again and again how important it was that no impacts were made on Lakeshore Road. And as much as my clients wanted an entry there, we stepped back and said, okay. Jeff Deep, however, since Route 31 is a bigger road and there's those turning lanes that you can use to kind of get off the flow pattern and turn, the little two-way, you see little arrows on the bottom of the screen. He approved the entrances as shown in that way. And we
Okay,
have a full traffic report that I think I have submitted in the past. So you guys have your hands on that.
So you can gain entrance and exit from Route 31 and from the Lakeshore Spur, right?
Correct,
Only.
correct. And if you flip over to my preliminary plan, it's a little clearer. But I get the next one over here. I think it's up in the PDF tab. Just the middle one there should be, let's see. Oh, it's a different one. We named things similar. That's all right. You don't have to pull it up. Don't worry about it. Basically, the net gain here is instead of it being a wide open area where many cars can come in and out, we're narrowing it, striping it and creating order in a place that there really isn't one. And it's very dangerous coming in off a road that's congested. You'll have several people moving in wayward fashion without curbs to delineate direction along with striping. So those are two things we'd be adding that drastically need, definitely needed in this space.
Okay, and why are you doing the drive-through?
The drive-through component is existing and
So you're gonna keep,
yeah, we're just gonna keep it. Yeah. They don't expect a lot of traffic on it, but the client felt that it was an important item to retain. It's in the character of the building, represents something that they need to go out and fix out, and they think there could be some use with the drive-through component as well, with the convenience component as well.
okay.
Ravi?
Yeah, this has been a terrible, challenge with, traffic for this, parcel, as you well know.
Absolutely.
The entrance coming in on the, east side of, 31. If the drive-through lane has the cars, for example, that are, you're showing there, that individual either has to stop and wait to get in line if he, that's what his purpose is, or do a 360 to come back at it.
It'd be a drive around. Yeah, there'd be signage for that. If he wants to get in line, he's got to loop all the way around, and we're showing a high level of stacking and the use being primarily a convenience mart.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't anticipate high levels of usage for the drive-through and
I'm not-
Gordon Stansbury's
I'm not
traffic
familiar with
report.
any drive-throughs on convenient marts.
Same here.
How many parking spaces are there? Without me counting?
Well, let's see. I have a chart.
We'll click
I
minute.
think it's 9, and that number's based on employee numbers and
Okay.
parking numbers for use as well, which is Gordon Stansbury's traffic study also helped us dictate based on using a baseline of other convenience marts of the same size and same number of employees.
So the customers that come in that entrance and park to the right, the east side there,
Mhm.
they have to walk across the traffic lane, around the building and to get into the front middle.
Correct, but there is a small curbed concrete apron on all sides, so you can step up on that and walk around
You know, once you get to it.
once you get to it.
And another question, and on the west entrance exit, going west direction from that exit, is that implying right only or right or left?
Right or left,
Which means cutting across Route 31 traffic.
correct, but if the DOT approves it, I'm not gonna weigh in on my expertise.
Okay,
There is a turn lane there.
Correct,
Helps a little bit.
yes.
okay, thank you.
Mark, I'm gonna go to turn. Did you have a comment? I was gonna ask that as well.
Coffee, if anything, probably.
Yeah, small items.
It seems to me like, I'm not familiar, I think there was one in Liverpool once, but it's gone. But it seems to me like this is a difficult site, has been mentioned, and the drive-through kind of makes it. It seems like it could be a better layout without it,
I'll note that. I'll talk to the client about it.
right?
Certainly. I don't know about that. Yeah, yeah. No, I couldn't weigh on it either. It's a.
I don't know who the tenant is. I know that the applicant is the property owner, but I don't believe he's gonna be the tenant. So I don't know if we can get that information. What will be sold? What will be the purpose of, the drive-through component? for it.
Come on up.
So the tenant definitely.
Could you please come up? Give your name
Marla Cohen.
when you get to the mic.
Marla Cohen. The
Marla.
tenant definitely sees a use for the drive-through. He definitely is seeing a use for the drive-through, and there are further, like, downstate, there's convenience chains that do have drive-through with them. So it's not like, something that's out of the state. And I think he does come from downstate, actually. So he's probably bringing an idea that's down there up here to use, but he definitely does see a use for it. We don't anticipate having huge stacking, but I think he does see that people will use it. And especially, I think, since COVID, I think that there's still this use for drive-throughs that people are still wanting to use.
Yeah, our point is, I think it negatively affects the layout of the lot with it. And it's a difficult lot to begin with. And it's just not a common thing up here.
Right, right. It's not common, but it's a different idea. And the use prior to it was a Dunkin' Donuts. Now, that was a heavily used trafficked property, and they had no
They
problem.
moved because of it.
Pardon?
They moved down the road because of it.
Well, there was different issues, but they had no issue. I mean, they were there for 10 years at least, I think, maybe 15 years, and they had no issue. And that had probably 10 times the traffic in the site that this will have. And so, I mean, this is basically the same traffic flow pattern. And it worked for them with, a really heavy usage and a heavy usage between certain times, more than this will have more of a longer period of time, people going through it.
So when it was Dunkin', was there only one lane here?
Exactly the same thing.
There was? I think,
Did you have? was it
So,
two? Did
yeah,
you take
here,
away?
let me clarify that. So when Duncan was there, it's closer to as it is now, which is, the entirety is paved, and you could argue that's a better thing. I would argue against that because it's a free-for-all getting in and out from the road and getting within the site. This has a very dictated pattern of circulation, which is by all accounts a safer way of doing things. But yes, there
We
was,
could put the lane and have no issue putting that.
we could, but
really?
that Duncan Lane would have been over their property line. It would have been in your right of way if it existed at all, or if it was just merely a paved patch of adjacent right of way land that they used as a bypass lane, rather than a truly planning board approved on your own property bypass lane. As it stands now, we can't do a bypass lane because the property line is there and the building certainly hasn't moved. So
Okay.
we have in the past required a bypass line.
we have a bypass on the other side. We don't have one at that, on the southern side. Is what
So
I'm saying.
it meets half of the requirements.
I think it's kind of a housing person. You can still get in there and you can go out the entrance and you're gonna see that it's locked out. So, and again, it would start encroaching right away. If you do have to.
It would encroach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one part. I think we need to get a better understanding of what exactly the use of. Drive through going to be.
Well, I would think that he's going to be trying to sell coffees in the morning, someone's picking up some cigarettes or something.
If you said that you had if you said that you had other stores downstate, perhaps you could provide an example, exactly what he's doing downstate, and exactly what he's trying to do. Because it doesn't really help us say, I would think it's coffee, and it could be a number of things, which would all be within the planning board review to know what you're actually going to use that for. So you may think it's coffee, but you have an operator who wants to have, according to you, similar use here, maybe you should be able to give us a detailed description of the use because he's doing it in another class.
I thank you. We'll continue the discussion. Chuck, did you have anything else?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, we've dealt with this corner before. The minute I looked at it, I had to have a definition of what a convenience shop is and what they're gonna sell, because when we were looking at it as a coffee shop, that gives you some parameters about when people will come, you know, how busy they'll be. When there was talk of a pizza shop, again, we could define what was going on. You say a convenience shop, if they're selling coffee, if they're selling cigarettes, if they're selling, maybe they get a license to sell weed, I don't know. I mean, it has a lot to do with what the hell we're expecting people to buy there before I then will even worry about the traffic situation. The traffic situation is horrendous. I think no matter how, if it gets approved, it's still gonna be a traffic nightmare. I mean, you know, I'd love to have the Cohen say, we're gonna donate this corner to the town. We're gonna put a flag up there and a monument for our soldiers and sailors and Marine people. Because there isn't a simple solution to this plot of land. So if you can get us a more definitive outline on what we're gonna sell, that would be good. That's all I've got for now.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes, not to beat a dead horse here, but if you can come up with some kind of a number, you know, how many vehicles do we expect to go in and out of here? Like especially during certain hours. That area, especially early in the morning, is very, very heavily traveled. And how is that gonna impact your business? And is that gonna create a problem? And like you said, we spoke 10 years ago. Boy, in the last 10 years, a lot of things have changed in this town. And I think if possible, I would like to hear a number. What do you expect to generate in traffic in and out?
I think, I think the traffic study really addressed that carefully because he was able to look at other convenience stores, like just, you know,
Well,
a
yeah, I'm
couple
more
feet
interested
away.
in hearing from you.
Right.
I don't always
Oh, yeah,
agree
no.
with the traffic study. Yeah, I'm all set.
Mrs. Hogan.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said here. And I also think, although I love the fact that it's closed off on Lake Shore because I use Lake Shore every morning, every day, multiple times because I live off of Lake Shore. I do think that it's going to create more traffic than it did before going on to Route 31. And my concern is actually, because I've seen accidents like this for all businesses on Route 31, when someone tries to come out and take a left. So like when they're coming back out, which they will do. So from this one, yeah, and they try to take a left onto that street, they're crossing a lot of busy traffic, which they will try to do because there's not many ways to get out back onto Route 31. That will be very dangerous to try and come out because right at that corner, and again, I know you did traffic studies, but like I live in this area and go by this all the time. People try to pass the lane of the people trying to go on to Lake Shore. So if you're coming this way, and the people who are waiting in line to try and get onto Lake Shore, the people who are trying to get around that zip right there, like really fast to try and get around that line. So that interaction of like someone trying to come out and take a left and then someone zipping really fast down that is like really, really bad. And I just think that it's going to be a lot more because Lake Shore is closed off, which I like because Lake Shore is a nightmare in the morning. So I agree with that. But at the same time, you have to take it into consideration that that's never been closed off before with the other businesses. So that is going to create more down below. So I know that's kind of like along the lines of what everyone's saying, but I'm just saying like, I live this like several times a day. So I can see like that just being a disaster. It's also right near, what no one said is that there's a lot of students who walk around this area. So that would like just scare me to death because there's always CNS students and stuff walking up and down trying to get to the other Dunkin' Donuts. So they'll be walking in and out of this convenience shop as well, which will be just kind of a disaster in terms of like all the traffic in the student safety. So and then yeah, so I feel like all my other concerns are just like later on, like what they were saying,
I
but
could just address that.
yeah.
There's never been an opening on the spur road before. which is, that's why we have the opening to try and
Yeah,
alleviate some of, all the other things. So that opening on Spur Road is meant to try and, take away from all the traffic going on to 31.
yeah,
So that's like a very much more controlled in and out going over there.
hmm
And if you look at it in relation to where the majority of the parking is, the majority of the parking points you towards the spur. And we already discussed how the drive-through component is going to be the smaller engine of this functioning property.
hmm
So we anticipate most people taking Lakeshore Spur out. And that
Yeah.
was also included. I'll provide you guys a chart that has a summation of what's in the study, and we'll provide this study as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I think Ashley's got a good point. I mean, I almost wonder why, since we're using the spur, which has a light, why couldn't we limit the left-hand turn
hmm
to not a left-hand turn, that you come out on 31, you can only turn right. If
Right.
you're gonna go towards, Bridgeport, then you'd have to go circle the rest of the building, go out on the spur, and then you've got a light to make the safe turn.
right.
You can't circle
Uh,
on the,
Yeah, but you can't circle if the drive-through is being used a lot. So then that comes back to the drive-through.
and that was my
So-
thinking when I first saw it. You can't get out of the spur if you're on,
Yeah,
the
you're
west side
kind
of
of
the building.
trapped into that area.
If the window is that busy, you're right.
And why do we need two entrances from 31? As well as the entrance from the spur?
Well, it was to alleviate also to go in, to help people get to the back parking, if you go into the first one, versus if you come in only at the second one, if there's any cars in the drive-through, then that would lock it up. So it was to alleviate any,
because of the drive-through.
hmm
Okay,
well,
but
it's also to just help people that, there's
Yes.
parking in it, in the front and the back.
And we have
So-
one way, the only way to make that, the parking function is to have a single. You can't do a two-way movement going south from that spur entrance. It would be Asian, we'd be on the other side of the road.
Say that again?
We would be backwards, because if you're trying to come in the spur and then go south to get into a parking space, you're going.
Oh, you'd have to go around. Yeah,
Exactly.
it'd have to be a
You don't
one-way,
really have enough room to
one-way
establish a
circle.
lane on the other side. Is
It
that
would be a one-way circle. Right now, it's half moon.
Yes.
Is there an ordinance station or is this?
I think it's just, I didn't even think about that. I think just driving up to the window.
I think we're not sure.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
sure. Good question. Good question. Yeah, no, it was a good question. Maybe, yeah.
I think there used to be a speaker system.
Either
Well,
way,
there's-
we'll have it on the next,
the whole drive-through thing just sort of adds to the
oh,
confusion.
it's not.
It does. No, that's. Ashley, also.
That's good for now. Thank you.
So we pretty much covered the things that I had concerns with relative to the drive-through and the traffic, and I think one good thing about this project is it's not gonna attract new traffic to the area, right? It's gonna be somebody that's driving by for the most part, so that's a good thing. I think we need to work on that interior part.
I think the other thing to note too, is the town's regulations state that you have to do street intersections, so they're going to be.
And another thing is, I've already mentioned that we've always required a bypass for a drive-through. We don't have that here. I don't know if the board is willing to, we'd like to be consistent with our applicants, and
What if we could prove that the number of stacking in the drive-through would, on average, never fill up to the half moon portion in the bottom? Is that something we could?
you're gonna have a guard out there with a machine gun.
No, no.
Mhm.
If I-
I was being funny.
No, it's fine. I guess my point is.
We're willing to listen.
The client's intent here is that the drive-through will be
Okay.
minuscule stacking, and we've talked a lot about the stacking.
And if the DOT really required us to do this traffic study, so then we're relying on what the person who did the traffic study says, you know, and they are also relying on it, and that is what he told us too. You know, so
Right.
they're relying on what he said, we're relying on what he said, and that's what he is telling us.
And the traffic study actually gave us another entrance by its determination, but the DOTs hacked that off and said, no, they took out the lakeshore entrance, which through the traffic study would have been technically
Okay,
allowed.
right.
So there's already been a couple rounds of edits beyond just the traffic study.
Steve,
No, I think everything's been covered now.
you
'cause
know,
I
anything
can-
at this point? Mark,
No, I think we discussed that. We need more clarity on the drive-through, how the functions, what we move for, and give the revenue.
keep in mind, we have required that bypass on every drive-through that's sort of right in front of us. And I'm not all that interested in not remaining consistent with that. But I'll listen. And I'm only one vote.
We could.
Anything else for us? You have a question?
Oh, and I was just asking if we can get some type of variance so we could make a bit bypass lane the southern part.
Bypass lane there?
There is one now. It's paved
I mean, it shows that there's,
on the southern part. Yeah, over
Down
there.
here. Just one lane. here.
Yeah, just one on the.
Up here, there's a bypass, not
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah.
You can drive through, there would be like you could do it now.
Right now.
Yeah, I thought so. You know, a flagpole would be beautiful, but I understand somebody owns this and they have a right to use it, and we want to work with you relative to that. And it's a difficult spot, so that's where everybody is.
No hard feelings. We know it's a tough one. So.
We want to plan it out as best as possible for you and for our residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is for the property on McKinley Road. This is a proposed self-storage unit and outdoor storage facility. Sketch plan review. Good evening.
Good evening, Julian Clark with Plumley Engineering, here with Joe Verdi, who's the property owner and the developer. And we're looking to do some self-storage on the property, as just indicated, on the corner of McKinley and Pardee. There'll be 10 self-storage buildings of various lengths and widths. And then they'll have a small office, and also some climate-controlled storage. On the other side of the property, and in the middle, he's proposing some gravel area for outdoor storage. There are some overhead lines and easements in the middle of the property, and we're working with the Power Authority to obtain approval to do that work in the easement. We're gonna have two accesses from Pardee Road. Both of those will have a gate system, electronic gate system for controlled access into the property. There is not public sewer in the immediate area, so we will have to do a septic system. We are proposing to do some disturbance in the wetland buffer, and we contacted DEC and started that process. And we realized after some conversation with Joe that the corner lot has 2 front yard setbacks, so we're gonna need easements for both RD and McKinley for the buildings.
Variances.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
All set?
Yep.
Mr. Duval.
Yes, how many storage units total?
We haven't broke up the sizes, so they're gonna range from size from 10 square foot up to 40 square feet. So once we get, the buildings down, and that will break up how many, it's just gonna be somewhere probably between 150 and 350, I would say. They're all small units, they're all large units.
Okay, and you will enter and exit from Pardee.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
We
All
felt that was a better better approach to have that controlled access going out of Hardly there.
Okay, I'm good for now.
Mr. Abbey?
My first question is, what's the zoning in this property?
It's industrial.
This,
Mhm.
is there anything, indicated or talked about, security fencing?
Yes, there's a 6-foot fence around the property.
Okay, 'cause I can't tell, it's so small here.
It is small.
And how many acres are we talking about for the, project?
The total property is 14, almost 15 acres, call it.
Using most of it?
Yes. Well, not the wetland portion.
I think it's.
Okay. All right, thank you for now.
Mr. Snyder?
You're gonna go and ask for a variance for the setback on McKinley?
Yes.
Right, I mean. I guess good luck. I guess it's a good thing I'm not on a zoning board because I certainly would not have approved that. The driveways that you have coming in, you have the little bit of area that we, 40 feet or so that's paved. And then you have a gravel driveway that goes to the paved area where the buildings are. We have a policy basically that says a driveway that the public's gonna drive on would be paved, would not be gravel. So we would expect, I would expect anyway, that to be gravel, to be paved. And the same thing with the other driveway that comes in, to your office and condition space. You're in the process of trying to get approval from both the Power Authority and Niagara Mohawk on using the land under the power lines?
Yes.
Because that's absolutely, we don't do nothing without that. And we've had a couple of situations that really got a little bit out of hand. I guess that's all for now.
Mr. Bloss?
If I'm reading this correctly, your climate controlled storage on this print that I'm looking at, other than I'm looking at the one that I was given here, the building is just outside of their National Grid easement, correct?
Yes.
And National Grid they don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's close.
We're in conversation. We sent them the plan and we're waiting for some feedback.
Okay.
Also,
Well, I noticed the driveway going to that building. Yeah, the wetland.
your building is in the wetland?
In the
Well,
buffer.
no,
It's
it's
in a
in the
buffer.
wetland
Wetland
buffer.
buffer.
Okay.
Still requires a permit.
And the actual driveway to that building, that's gonna, I'm just trying to verify everything. That will be gravel.
It's shown
Yes,
as
the
gravel
gravel
now,
in front of the climate.
meet code, we can black up that.
Okay, that's it for me right now.
Mrs. Hogan?
Yeah, I guess I just, are we just too early to be showing any like trees and landscaping and stuff? Are we just like not there yet?
Correct.
Okay, and signs as well? So you just haven't gotten that far?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the rest of it isn't really ours, like in terms of how much you're still working on getting approvals of like where you're placing all of this? Like in terms of what you're knocking down and what's currently there and
Yes.
what's,
Yep.
okay, so we're still before that,
It's an empty lot right now.
right? So there's nothing that you have to knock down or anything to put this here. Okay. Okay, that's it for now.
Did you say you have an application in front of the zoning board?
No,
Not yet. And we think a lot alike when it comes to landscaping. That was gonna be one of my concerns because the encroachment that you're doing with the setback takes away a lot of the area that would typically be some landscaping. So whether or not you get that the approval by the zoning board, we're gonna want to see some landscaping along that area. To include, I think there's a residential to the east of this. residential use. There's a house there.
Yeah, so it's zoned industrial, but I believe it is.
I know it's owned industrial, but residential use, so we're gonna want to see some buffering there as well. And then the storage area, the gravel storage area. What type of storage are we looking at?
Boats and, RVs.
And that's all I have at this point. Mr. Procopio.
Fire protection, water supply is gonna be a big component of this. Hydrant locations, fire flow, et cetera. You know, I think we talked a little bit about the possibility of needing sprinklers and that type of things. Yeah. Apparatus access. I know you're gonna have this large storage area where vehicles or boats are gonna be stored and, you know, fire apparatus, getting through that and getting towards these buildings. That type of thing is gonna need to be considered. Are you gonna lane this off where this outdoor storage area is, or is it just gonna be,
Actually, okay.
yeah, free for
We
all
don't have designated
parking spaces?
parking spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Green? Mr. Parrish? I know you got a review.
So, yeah, and at this point, I don't think we really want to do, go back and this point, and I think things that are needed in the college. One, the variance, the board impact on this. Not to comply with the past variance. Two, you can see the approval from, Power Authority Manager, Grid relative to the, use of property, power lines, and, you know, number three, the information indicating the encroachment of the wetlands going to be allowed, and or some kind of design on the two both systems. You know, let alone the stormwater design and the rest of the detail. And I think that other things that have been brought up are, you know, against lack of setback and building screen on the utility and that, you know, general. Really encouraging for significant more.
Is the total site fenced in? Because I thought when I was looking at the drawing, it looked like it
No,
wasn't around
we
the
did
whole
not
site.
fence the east side. We took the fence up to the north, the eastmost storage unit, and we fenced down to the office building. So the whole east and south side is not fenced.
So if I have my RV sitting there, it's not really protected. All the storage units that I've seen, they have the complete yard is fenced in, or at least the complete area that is in fact got storage in it. So I mean, maybe you don't need to be way out where you don't have, storage, but if you, like in your gravel area, I would think that, people feel a lot safer putting their property, you know, their cars or their boats or whatever in there, if there's at least a fence that someone's got to climb over to do damage.
Right, that's it for now.
With the variances, do we get a recommendation from you guys or we go straight there?
You can, you just can submit an application to my office, yeah. If you choose to move forward with this or relocate the buildings, that's up to you.
And who would make the determination on the front yard or side yards? Because we're talking about 1 yard, one front yard or 2 side.
Well, it's actually 2 front yards. Okay, so you McKinley and part of your both front yards, and you ask for variances for both of those at zoning board of appeals.
Anything else?
Good.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next agenda item, this is for sketch plan review. This is Myers RV Superstore, property at 8575 Bruton Road. A proposed new showroom and sales building. Welcome.
My name is Alex Zammering. I'm with Costage Engineering with offices at 217 Lake Ave, Rochester, New York. You're obviously on behalf of Myers RV. With me is Mike Fleming, General Manager of the facility here in Syracuse. I'm sure you're familiar, this is located on Brewerton Road at 8575. They currently occupy the property. I don't know how many of the board members were on, but a number of years ago, I think they came before you looking to do some improvements. Ultimately, their efforts were kind of focused on some other facilities. Obviously, a lot's happened in the last number of years. Fast forward to today, and they're kind of re-looking at this. If you're familiar, there's kind of a sales showroom that fronts along Brewerton. There's an existing service building that's set back a little further from the road in the rear. The current proposal would be to demo the existing sales showroom, build a new one that would be connected to the sales building. Obviously set a little further back from the road. It would, for the most part, screen the service building. As part of the improvements, we would be paving pretty much everything forward of the buildings, modifying some of the circulation, a new customer parking area, installing some stormwater management, new landscape lighting, kind of giving a fresh look to the front of the facility. Obviously all which is seen from Brewerton Road. Other than that, the facility itself will primarily operate as it does today. It'll, in general, kind of improve safety with the two buildings. You'll have less folks going back and forth between the two. We will be fencing off the rear of the facility, so essentially only the front is open to the public. Folks would come in, park, come into the showroom if they want to look at any of the inventory, then a salesperson would take them. I believe usually using a golf cart, to the rear and show them around. The property itself, it's rather large. It's about 70 acres. It's long, extends towards the rear. We're not really proposing to do anything to the rear of the property. It's gravel inventory, overflow display vehicles, that type of thing. We have submitted a number of items. We submitted architectural elevations. It's a metal panel building. It does have a CMU base along the bottom. It has some kind of a color band matching their company colors. Glass storefront windows, a higher eave on the roof, a little more modern than kind of the hip roof you see out there today. One of the things that works well for other facilities, they have a pull through. You'll see a canopy there. Customers can pull up, drop off the vehicle. An associate can kind of take it from there. The ingress and egress to Brewerton Road is going to be pretty similar to what it is today with a few modifications. There's a full access point kind of central to the site that will serve, incoming and exiting vehicles. And then at the southern portion of the site, there will also be an exit only lane for vehicles that kind of navigate through that drive through at the front of the facility, then can exit out onto Brewerton. Even though we're on for sketch plan, we did go ahead and, submit some landscaping, lighting, all of that. We are working through some details of where the existing water and sanitary services are, that type of thing. But at this point, we'd be open to questions if there's anything about the operation or the business. I'm sure Mike can help chime in on that.
How similar is this to the last presentation that was made?
I believe before the buildings weren't connected, right?
The buildings weren't connected on the last.
Can you step up to the mic, please?
Yeah, the buildings were not connected on the last one. It was just set back about 10 foot behind the existing building now. It's gonna be two separate buildings, so now we're teeing in. So that's pretty much the major difference from the last time. Then we're putting the front awning on as well. So.
Okay. Thanks. We'll open up the questions from the board, Mr. Duval.
Okay, so you're taking down part of the existing building?
The complete existing showroom sales building, which
Okay,
is in the front.
and you're doing a new building for the showroom, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
and you're connecting everything.
Mhm.
Okay, how does the flow change? Is it pretty much gonna be the same or?
It's similar in that, the parking for the sales in the showroom is between the building and, the roadway. Again, to keep folks from navigating through, the display vehicles. The goal is really to get the customers off the road and right to the sales building. It's a large facility. The last thing you want is, people kind of helping themselves around. So that's where, as soon as you pull in, I think we'll probably have some directional signage to the customer parking field. That's the main area, right in front of the drive-through there.
Okay, that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Abbey.
Just curious, without measuring, what is the width of the in and out entrance on Route 11?
I want to say 30 feet.
215?
I believe so. Can you zoom in on that by chance? Yeah, we would like to make, if we're making forward progress with this board, we'd like to make a concept submission to the DOT. So we're not, obviously wasting your time without some buy-in from them.
I question if 15 feet is wide enough per lane for some of these big motorhomes to swing in there. Because they're coming in at an angle and then maybe going to the right or right to the dump station. So something to think about.
Yeah, we'd be happy, to run some auto turning movements and we can submit that to, town staff.
You get a 40 footer pulling a 20-foot car.
Yep. Yeah, we have plenty of room to work with, but ultimately, DOT will have a say in kind of what the width is and the curb cut, so.
Okay, that's all for now.
Mr. Snyder.
When I was looking at the building, I guess the layout of the office and stuff there, you just leave off bathrooms right now. I mean, that's something that the main building that you're building will have, but you don't show it currently with what we have in our hands.
There will be new bathrooms on the floor plan.
Yeah, there's,
They don't show up.
no.
I will get you a clarification on that.
Yeah, As you
No,
get
I-
older, you know,
Never
If
mind.
it was just for the
Never mind.
employees, maybe they wouldn't,
The,
but I think
other
the
thing-
customer should
Yeah.
get a new bathroom.
The other thing I looked at is if you'll, Parker, if you show the south end of the building. For some reason, you have two gates. You have a swing gates and you have a slide gate. I don't know why you do that. I would think you only need one of those. Let's not spend any more money for gates than you have to.
That's an error. It's already been removed.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see that. Of course, the signage will be important because I'm thinking about if I was driving my truck and my RV in there and I want to use your dump station, you got to tell me how to get there
Mhm.
and you got to tell me where I go to pay to have that privilege or if it's something that I've got a privilege to do for free because I bought my unit there, that has to be explained. As Chuck was saying, I'm a little concerned about the entrance into the, because, you take, I only had a 35 footer, but that between the fifth wheel, between that and my truck, that's a lot to turn in. And it is a busy road. I almost wonder if there was a way to have almost a turn-off lane. If you're coming from the north, so I'm not turning from an active lane on Route 11, I'm turning from inactive lane into the front entrance. that may be something you want to just look at and see if it's possible. I like what you're doing. I'm sorry we didn't build the last one, but I can see some advantages in what you're doing this time.
Yeah, I'll say, since I think they were before this board last, they have a number of these facilities and I think they've kind of found what works good for them and hopefully, what we're here with today, is better than last time, so.
I'm done.
Mr. Bloss,
I'm all set.
Mrs. Hogan.
I'm all set. The only thing I wanted to add is that, when you do the signs, well, we're gonna approve those first, right? All the different signs to directing.
I was gonna ask, does this board entertain handling signage separate from site plan or is it really encouraged to be all together?
Altogether,
Okay.
part of site plan, yeah.
So I guess the only thing I would add is that when you do that, if you could create more landscaping around those signs. I see that you have it for the big main sign. Is the big main sign staying the same?
Our current thought is, we would be keeping the signage along the road, and I think that's where you're referring to the
Right.
landscape.
Yeah,
And then we would be adding some building mounted signage, but,
okay.
um,
I guess that would be my only request is that you could somehow add some more. Since you're adding more industrial, more commercial, that you could also add more landscaping when you're adding the more signs.
Yep.
That's it.
I'd like to pick up on Dan's comment about a pull-off lane, because, that's 55 miles an hour. And coming in there with a camper, especially if you're towing, you're down to just a few miles an hour to make that turn. You can't do it off a 55-mile-an-hour road.
yeah, I would like to kind of start up some dialogue with state DOT on that,
Okay.
that can get involved with takings and there's, I think a number of the drainage along that side of the road, force mains, there's
That's a great safety.
safeties.
item.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm all set at this point, Mr. Procopio.
I'm good for now, thanks.
Mr. Jermaine? Harris, anything yet?
Yeah, that's for now, I guess. That minute of pretty complete, but plans for, maybe we can split them up, so, there's significant.
No significant changes. You don't anticipate any significant changes?
No, we've spent quite a bit of time working through the programming and, we obviously welcome staff comments and, we'll get the ball rolling with state DOT. Got a little work. It sounds like we'll get with the architect on the building mounted signage, get you that info. Yeah.
Great.
Next step would be,
So Mark will review and get a letter out,
okay.
then we'll meet again. Super. Once you address the comments.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. That concludes the agenda items. Anybody have any discussion? I do. We're going to go into executive session for legal advice. We're going to be going in at 7:30 PM. We will reconvene, but it will simply be to adjourn the meeting. So you're welcome to stay, but we're not going to be doing anything when we get back. And with that, I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
That's in the form of a motion.
That's in the form of a motion. I need a second. Second. Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Mitchell, you're welcome to join us ad hoc.